Welcome to the Jackie Scully Show. This is not your ordinary podcast. This is a space for heart-centered conversations, bold ideas, and transformative visions. I sit down with thought leaders and visionaries who are making waves in the world of heart, education, and consciousness. Together, we explore how we want to live, co-create, and thrive in 2025 and beyond. Every Friday, join me for inspirational and thought-provoking stories of everyday people creating extraordinary impact. These individuals are sparking waves of positive change, embodying the kind of impact we all aspire to create. This season, 3 powerful themes emerge: the heart of wholeness, exploring inner love, emotional balance, and our deep connection with awe; the future of education, rethinking learning through personalized pathways, collaborative growth, and community-driven transformation; and a new era of consciousness, expanding possibilities and how we live and thrive together. Come sit with me. Let's dream, build, and embody the world we wish to see. This is the Jackie Scully Show. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to the Jackie Scully Show. And today we have Vinita Mongia with us. And I have met Vinita through Hope Patterson in the We Evolve women's group. And we have connected about education and our mission and vision and how we want to support educators, principals. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about Vinita, and then we're going to hear her story and what she's been working on. So Vinita is a dedicated educator and principal with 30 years of experience, visionary school leader, committed to achieving high expectations for academic success, student well-being, and equity and inclusion. Throughout her career, she led in a variety of roles, including special education, teacher, early literacy resource, literacy coach, vice principal, and principal. She has also been a mentor supporting educators, principals, and superintendents to reach their full potential. Additionally, she has spearheaded the development of professional learning presentations for parent communities and cultivated innovative partnerships and programs. Vinita is a firm believer in creating harmonious and purposeful learning environments for students, educators, parents, and fellow principals. She has a new program called CALMfident, Mindful Leadership, and is a leadership consultant for principals. I am so excited to have you on the show today, Vinita. Thank you for being here.
It is such a pleasure to be with you here, Jackie, and feels like a very full circle moment as have been listening to your podcast for a while before I've had the opportunity to meet you, and now here we are together.
Yes, it is a full circle moment. And I've just felt such a connection with you and see you as a mentor for the work that I do and have learned so much from you so far. And I'm really excited about this conversation today. So we're going to get right into it and just give us a little backstory about your journey in education, about you, about how you've come into this work you're doing today.
Well, I have had a really successful career in education. I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to be an educator, and that journey was pretty exciting for me. What I did not realize was that I was really destined to be a school principal. So that story and journey unfolded for me over the years as I just started to grow in my different roles and increase my ability to serve school communities, and just slowly over time just sort of built that leadership muscle, and thought, I've got leadership mentors in the principals that I was working with that believed in me and that were huge advocates for me. And before I knew it, I was principal of a school, and it was really truly the highlight of my career. So I got the opportunity to serve as principal in a few different schools in Ontario with Peel District School Board. And I, I went to work every day feeling like I had the best job and could not think of any other place other than a school environment to go to every day.
I love that. And I love the principal perspective because I've been in the teacher, world for so long and I never stepped my foot into administration. So, but I think we have the same outlook on what both educators and principals are going through, particularly during the pandemic, the burnout. And I love your approach to really wanting to focus on mindfulness and like bringing that into leadership, but how we have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of our teachers, faculty, staff, students, everyone that's part of your school community. So, what was that turning point where you went from being principal to I want to do something where I'm helping principals and create this business that you have where you're doing professional development for that as a leadership consultant?
Well, thanks for asking, Jackie. It's really a pleasure to be able to share this journey with you and your listeners because it is one of those conversations that I think happens, more quietly between school leaders, but not enough out there in terms of what was referred to as the elephant in the room the other day when I did a presentation. So I think as educators and school leaders, we all really understand what it means to help others regulate their nervous system. So that's something that we do. It's language that's very familiar with educators as we are particularly supporting students. They're managing higher levels of anxiety. They're having more and more challenges coping at school. And that was probably resulting from the pandemic as well. And so that's something that we're really good at as school leaders and as educators. However, we are not necessarily as in tune with regulating our own nervous system as school leaders. So my journey actually started with myself, where all of the strategies and resources and best practices that I had in place for a long time just didn't seem to be working anymore. So, the more experienced you are as a school leader, you're building a muscle. You get more confident, you get, more resilient in addressing the diverse pressures and needs of school leadership. And I think your tolerance for stress increases until you get to that point where whatever resources and strategies and best practices you have in place are no longer working for you. And that may be, in my case, maybe in your listeners' case, is a slow, steady thing that just starts creeping in. And so my journey led to me having to take time away from work because I was so burnt out. Um, and it was really, truly a low point in my career because I felt like a failure. That if my colleagues are at school and they're under the same stresses and pressures, why can't I be? And so the journey to where I am today is part of how did I, rest and address my burnout journey. And I can share with you, I did what great educators do, and we go into a deep dive of learning. So that was my journey. I rested the burnout and recognized that I hadn't actually really addressed what was at the root of this increased levels of stress where I couldn't really regulate my nervous system the way I used to be able to. So that deep dive in learning is something that I did very privately, and I did as just part of my own healing process. And one day had that idea, baby, of, well, what is the point in all of this learning if I'm just saving it for myself?
Mm.
I've got a whole group of principal colleagues who are going through the same thing. I need to share this journey. And that's how I came to this space today where I'm creating content, I'm creating spaces, opportunities for dialogue, sharing best practices, sharing a message around centering ourselves in our learning and prioritizing our own personalized leadership development so that we can lead with well-being.
Yeah. I love the idea of taking what you went through almost like a coach. I think the best coaches are they had to walk through that journey themselves and be in this healing place to then be a really effective coach and have that credibility. So in order to offer that type of leadership consultancy to principals and in this place of like how do we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others, you had to go through that yourself. And it's such a service, it's not a lot of people do that. They can go through burnout, they could take early retirement, switch careers, do something that's like, does it pay the bills? And then I can build my life around it. I'm happy. That's great. And that's great. But I've been coming across a lot of people who, through their burnout, through their big life transition, they have found their service and it really becomes part of like their path, their soul path really. And now giving back in such a beautiful way because then you can impact so many more people. And when you are helping to transform principal leadership, you are then in turn helping how teachers are going to feel supported. Every school that I've been in, if people stayed, it was usually because it was great leadership. If they left, it was usually because it was pretty bad leadership. So it is so important also for teacher retention to have really good, strong principal leadership. So if you want to share a little bit about what you've created, even like your vision and your plans for the future. And I love this title, Confident, because you have a calming presence. I've noticed that right from when I met you. And we need that in leadership too. Like we can't just come in like guns ablazing. That doesn't work, that forceful energy. I think having a calming energy kind of resets the culture of the school and what we want to do on a day-to-day basis is just like lead from that calming place.
And to kind of align with that, Jackie, I would say that the two words that are my words and that were rooted in my success as a leader were calm and confident. And when you start to not feel the calm and your confidence starts waning, those are some of the beginning indicators that something's maybe not right. Those were the indicators for me, and probably the indicators for many of our school leaders that could be listening to this message. And as a school leader, you are regulating the nervous system of your school community because your leadership does make a difference in how you supporting the staff in your building, supporting children and families. And there's nothing more telling than a, how a principal manages scenarios of crises,
Mm.
where you really have to tap into all things calm and confident so that you keep the community and your staff and your students feeling safe and supported. And so I think leaders have the greatest intention of wanting to be at their best and to be of service to everybody all day long, all of the time. And that is not necessarily reasonable or sustainable. And so if school leaders are starting to question their leadership capabilities, question their joy in the job, question, is this what it's going to be where I'm feeling like I'm running around all day, um, solving problems, but not actually doing the visionary leadership work that I was called upon to do in this role, and feeling maybe just like the days are being filled and
Mm.
not necessarily fulfilled.
Mm.
When some of these things start weighing on you to the point where it's impacting your health and your well-being and your ability to lead the way you have led in the past, those could be indicators to sort of stop and take note. And what I have created, Jackie, is a framework, and it is a resilience through self-care framework. And is it specific to school leaders? No. What makes it special is that I'm sharing the message, contextualizing the school environment that I'm familiar with. So when I talk about building, connecting with others to build a support system, I'm speaking to school leaders who may not necessarily be ones to connect with thought leaders on LinkedIn, or they may not have thought about listening to a podcast about educational leadership, or they may not have thought to build their own community of principal colleagues within their board and beyond as a way to engage in conversations like this. They may not have recognized the importance of connecting with their family or their healthcare providers around conversations that are, related to their unique role as a school leader. So when I talk about the importance of connecting to cultivate supports, I share that within the context of a school leader. And then to go with that, the prompt would be like, well, who are you going to build supportive connections with? If you're feeling lonely in the school, lonely in your leadership role, then, really that you got to start with the baby steps and starting to build that supportive community. And so the content that I'm creating and the idea of working one-on-one with principals in prioritizing their professional leadership, working with communities of principals, sharing messages on podcasts. It's very generic and applicable to anyone who's struggling with, burnout and stress management in their leadership roles. What I'm bringing right now is just a really personalized connection to school leaders. And I'm hoping that this is something that's a little bit of maybe a new concept for school leaders,
Yeah,
like
I
investing
do.
in their own leadership. Like,
Yeah.
we're often attending leadership
Mm.
training around student achievement or student well-being or equity and inclusion or building, stronger connections with your community. It's not often that our leadership is focused on ourselves as school leaders. And that's something that I am
Mm.
hoping to inspire school leaders to engage in.
Yeah, and it goes back to this like idea concept of you have to fill your own cup, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And that's in, like you said, you could have these generic kind of ideas of how we do self-care and how we have like holistic way of work-life balance. But what you have is the stories and the journey and all of these different kind of scenarios that you can walk through and you can give life to the framework, just like if I were to give life to a framework of how teachers could have that work-life balance. But often I talk about too, it does trickle down from leadership because there's so much like teachers can do to take care of their own well-being, but their biggest frustration is often things that they can't change because it does come from leadership, such as the schedule, such as giving teachers more time for the grading at the end of a quarter or building in more time for teacher collaboration. Like there's things we can do for ourselves, but if our major challenge and struggle are external outside of what we can control, it does come from leadership. So what you're doing is actually in direct alignment in what I want to see in schools, because I always talk about the structure of the school and the culture and how the culture really needs to be fostered of a community and caring for one another and taking care of ourselves and not just seeing each other as like we're just doing a job, we're just doing work. Yes, it's just about testing and test scores and achievement, but we're taking care of people. Like school communities are very human centered. I mean, it should be at least. And so I think for a principal to do this work with you, to say, I'm going to take care of myself and see like what I need to do to be at my greatest potential, that's only going to trickle down to then maybe changing some things about the school community to foster that sense of like holistic education. And I could really see this being something that could change the way school looks because it does come from that visionary leader. Because we do want our principals to be visionary and not just putting out fires. And I know a lot of them probably feel that way. I know they did during COVID, but even post COVID, because now there's this pressure of we did so much with just COVID that we lost all the learning. And I don't think we really lost that much learning. I think we're shoving way too much back onto the teachers and kids. But I think what we need to do is say, like, what we did lose is that we lost community, we lost connection. We're still not prioritizing mental health the way we need to. So, and I always see that there is complexity and simplicity. And what you have, like, again, simple framework, but the complexity is like, I have the lived experience. And if you work like one-on-one with me, like talking about you, it's going to be so personalized. And that's what people are really looking for. They don't want just like the generic professional development and just talking about, like you said, what are we going to do to increase student achievement? Like that's been done over and over, and things don't change.
Right. And so creating and normalizing the context that we can be well in our work as educators and school leaders. This calm framework that I've created, it's simple in the sense that it's my favorite word. I think I told you. When I reflected on what were all of the different components of my learning that I embarked upon that didn't just help me rest the burnout, but actually address the burnout. And interestingly enough, Jackie, when I was creating, because I know educators, we like frameworks. We like we operate in framework language. We know it's good for kids when we're teaching them, and it's also good for us as leaders. And so when I really looked at the different components of my journey, I started tapping into the research that's being conducted on workload intensification of school leaders, stress and burnout of school leaders. And interestingly enough, everything that I was doing was rooted in the recommendations that were being made. So I didn't start my journey with, oh, let me read all the research papers and let me do what I'm being told to do. I did it the opposite. I just did different things. Part of it was building that connection and community. Part of it was really looking at gratitude, the attitude of gratitude, and really paying attention to my thinking patterns
Mm.
that had become pretty negative, and intentionally started working with positive thinking patterns, even around the things that I was not happy about and complaining about at school, because I had to go through the journey. Um, really being intentional on the things that I wanted to learn about, that I needed to learn in order to manage the complexity of the job. And some of that was productivity management,
Mm.
time management, how to set boundaries, like just learning the job differently, and giving myself time to learn that. And then the last was mindful measures. So what are all of the daily practices, not just at home, but at school, that can create a more mindful, calming experience where I am actually regulating my nervous system through these intentional practices? And so these are the things that I was doing. And lo and behold, that's all rooted in what the research was saying. So I know that what I'm sharing is not misaligned with what the research says. I just came at it through a lived experience, and am validating it with what the research is saying. And while there's an incredible amount of advocacy at principal association levels and at boards of education with ministries of education, it doesn't seem like change is happening fast enough, because on a day-to-day basis, we have to go to school. And, with each and every day that we are going to school, continuing in that hamster wheel that we are continuing at, we're only just deepening our stress and getting us closer to burnout.
Mhm.
And so by me coming in and saying, okay, listen, guys, I've got something to share. If it's something that can give you hope and something to hang your hat on, that you can start being the center of your learning, you can prioritize yourself in your learning journey so that you can lead with well-being. It might just be what you need to catch your breath.
Mm.
And if the water line is just below your nose right now, maybe you get that water line down to your chin. And then maybe when you've got some bigger chunks of time, like longer school breaks, you can then like get that water line a little bit lower. But there are ways,
Mhm.
and podcasts like yours and opportunities to connect through all of these different channels that I'm trying, I'm hoping will make a difference for school leaders.
I think it's going to definitely. And I like the idea of the visual of the water line, like feeling like we're drowning. And the idea is not to make big sweeping changes overnight or even in one school year, but it's the little bit of change, moving that needle just a little bit. And then when the leadership changes, even slightly, people recognize, people see it. And you are a model then to your faculty, to your teachers, and then to the students, right? It just, again, trickles down. So even just slightly little things that you can change about showing that well-being is going to be the center of the school community, as it should be for all industries, our well-being, because we are humans, we are not robots. But then
Mhm.
people can feel that, and then they feel like, oh, our principal is taking care of him or herself and cares about well-being. That's going to matter to me. And I want to show that to my students. And then the students are going to see that, like, I want to take care of myself. And when you have leadership that's just pushing, pushing, pushing and causing pressure because they're feeling it from up above, then that again trickles down too. So it's just making those little changes that could happen. And then
The
you're
other
doing it
layer,
side by
yeah,
side.
yes, yes. And the other layer, Jackie, is as school leaders, we also want to inspire educators to embark upon their leadership journey. And the amount of educators that are saying, there's no way that I want your job. There is no way that I want to be principal of a school. That's not sustainable because
Yeah,
school principals come from teachers.
they
We
do.
are first and foremost educators. And we need to also be leading in a way that we are inspiring teachers to
Mm,
take this journey.
yeah.
And if they see that you're running around all day, that you don't take time to eat or drink, or that you're always tired, or that you're sending emails at 11 o'clock at night
Mm.
and working all weekends and every day and at night, and that you're not positive about the job, you're not sharing inspiration in leadership about your job, we're not going to create a succession plan of future school leaders,
So
right?
true. That's so true. Yeah. Why would anyone want to fill those shoes if they're like, that looks
Mhm.
ridiculous? I mean, that's how I felt. That's my honest opinion about it. Like, I'm always like applauding school leaders because it's a huge job. And especially what I saw, what you had to do over COVID. But yeah, it didn't really make it desirable for me to ever want to enter that part of the profession. So yeah, you have to change the way you go about your leadership in order to actually continue to have teachers want to lead because there's not a lot of other leadership roles. I mean, there's department chairs, maybe some committee roles. I mean, obviously you have assistant principal that you can move into before that, but really that's the movement if you want to be a leader in a school community.
And in Ontario, where I live and where I've had my entire teaching career, we don't have as many charter schools or as many private schools, so to speak, that our communities are part of. We do have private schools, but our system's a little bit different than the American systems. I actually went to Teachers College in New York, so I had a bit of a different perspective. But we also have diverse unionized groups within our schools. So you may have up to 5 different unionized employee groups, and you want to be able to be a good leader for all of
Mm.
your staff and understand their unique roles and their unique criteria of their jobs and be able to to lead with, with care and concern for everyone in your building. And the end goal is to be able to ensure that we are creating the highest academic and well-being spaces for our kids
Yes.
so that they can thrive. And that also means we're supporting our parents in
Hmm.
their ability to support their children and their education. And we want our parents to thrive. So it's a complex job, and the layers of what school leaders experience is really not that well understood to non-school people. So,
Yeah.
when you try to talk to someone, we are in the school, we are like a CEO of a company.
Hmm.
And so taking the time to really invest in our own personalized professional development is necessary. That's what CEOs of businesses are doing. So why can't school leaders do the same?
I love that. What a great way to end this message. Yes, we have to borrow some of the same ways that CEOs are, helping to have their own personal development in their leadership. I think you're doing incredible work. I am going to put all of your information in the show notes, but if there's a final word or message you want to say before we end here, or how our listeners can find you, anything you want to share?
I think the most important thing that I need to share with principals is that before you want to be everything to everyone, be the best that you can be for yourself, because your family needs you and your school community needs you in the best version of yourself. So give yourself permission for self-care, because that is what is going to make the biggest difference in your career fulfillment, in your impact of leading school communities, and in your personal family life.
Thank you so much, Benita. This was such a joy. And I can't wait to share this message with everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Pleasure to be here.